Shalom, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Working Class Chronicles. I am your host, Renaissance Woman, aka Ren Judah, and I just wanted to do a live. I just wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about, some of the reels that I've been creating, give an opportunity for a Q&A or just for people to come up and maybe ask some questions or talk to me about what's going on with you and how you feel. I'm going to drop the link in the chat and, just talk about a little bit about what I'm doing here. So coming up, I'm working on chapter one of the Bostinator series, and I think I love that term because just like in the movie The Terminator, the Bostinator can't be bargained with, they can't be reasoned with, they can't be negotiated with. So that's what I call toxic bosses. I call them Bostonators because in my personal experience, what I've experienced when it comes to a Bostinator is that they will not stop until you are dead, or in my case, eradicated. Well, I just thinking about that term, eradicate. That word, is to destroy a bad or remove something that is bad, and it's just like that's a hell of a thing to say to someone. That's I don't even just think in just common everyday language somebody tells another person that they're going to eradicate them. So, um, yeah, so that to me, I have kind of just everything's content. It's all content. And I know for a while I had struggled here trying to figure out where I was going with the show because I didn't want to just consistently, I don't know about you guys, but I am just tired of the relationship conversations. They just were redundant and nothing, there is never any resolution. You can't get any resolve to something because it is really a matter of personal preference. There is no one size fits all when it comes to relationships. People, you cultivate and create your relationships based on your own wants, needs, and desires. Okay, and so that's just that for me. And the whole purpose of this channel had always been to talk about my personal growth and process of trying to bring change in my life. And from the time that I've gone on here all the way to now, you guys know, especially those who have followed me from the very beginning, that I have went through a lot of significant changes in my life, and a lot of them good. I was really excited about leaving the, I was talking about how I was in a toxic relationship with my previous job. I was like, I was in a toxic relationship for over 21 years, and went to a new place and was super excited, and it was amazing, and I had a great time. And then I just realized that like I literally jumped from the fire into a frying pan, and that's one of the things that I want to talk about when we continue with the um, navigating a toxic work environment series with our leadership series. Because one thing I've come to find out is that being in a toxic work environment, especially if you're going to um, be part of the same organization, playing musical chairs does not work. Because you think, well, if I just go to another department, or if I transfer to another section, if I go to accounting, or if I, you're on fries, if I go to the burgers, you think just moving positions. I was in the kitchen, I don't like it back there. I'm gonna go up front and work on the register. It's gonna be better. It's not if there is already baked in hostility, contention, and just poor management. It's not going to change. Changing locations is not going to change your ultimate outcome and circumstances. And so that's something that I had to learn the hard way. And I also watched. There's a young lady I have been observing her shifts from now in the short time that since I had left. It's going on about 3 years. I've watched her change positions 4 times. You can't. So it kind of reminds me of some of the camps with the flee doctrine. You can't flee to another country and think you're going to escape the systemic issues that plague the uh, poor, working class, and minority communities, because there is a variation of that everywhere you go. And so that's one of the reasons why this stream is important, because it I want to challenge you to consider how you have been programmed. Consider how you show up. One of the scriptures that we have on our slideshow for the Hebrew Woman show that we do on the Sabbath is 2 Corinthians 13 and 5, which tells us to examine ourselves. Examine yourselves whether ye be of the faith, to prove you your own selves, whether you be in Christ, whether Christ is in you, except you be reprobate. And and at times, if you're not willing, like for me, one of the most important things when I'm talking about navigating a toxic work environment is not for you or I to show up and say they are doing this to me. This is because, yeah, while that may be true, I don't think things happen in a vacuum. I don't think they happen for no reason at all. I think a lot of things happen to you in your life to show you things about yourself so that you can grow. And so if you whether you're encountering a bossinator or whatever is happening in your workplace or space, it is a growth opportunity. And for me, my promotion sent me on a trajectory of seeking leadership training. And one of the best things happened to me was to become involved with Focus St. Louis, to do the NLA Neighborhood Leadership Academy, and to once I took the Clifton Strengths report and I did the EQI report, I got to see a lot of things about myself, a lot of patterns about myself that peripherally I knew, but there's something about seeing those things in writing and having a whole analysis generated, talking about your personality, your leadership style, and letting you know what your key flaws are, and what you need to watch out for. So it's not something negative like when you talk about the strengths, because it gives you your strengths as well. But for me, and I'm always poking and prodding, I guess you could say, but it was to see that, oh, I do that when I'm upset, so that when things happen to me, I can learn how to respond differently. So EQI report is about how you show up, your emotional intelligence. And so being able to now there are a lot of things that have happened to me that I can honestly say, just even the incident Thursday, I would have had a complete and total meltdown. While I still am and did get upset, because I will never take being threatened lightly, especially when we're talking about a person who has a past. And you never know what's driving a person. And when I watch people become erratic and desperate, and I do think, because I'm 48 years old and I've never threatened another person on my job in my life. So I think that when people get to the point where they're comfortable, or get to the point where they're willing to threaten people, that there's a level of danger, an extreme level, a high level of danger there, and also them spiraling. And unfortunately, what happens a lot of times, employers will see the pattern, but they won't engage. They won't do anything because they're worried about liability. And unfortunately, it puts employees in a position where they get hurt. Me having prior law enforcement experience definitely has me where I don't take threats lightly, because, and I do watch active shooter situations. I've trained for an active shooter situation. So I don't take it threatening. I don't take someone telling me they're going to eradicate me as if it was something to be made light of. Because regular people don't use that type of language. That's not something you just say to someone, or remove you. Like it's a wart, a tick, a disease, something. I seen what in the Orkin commercial, you eradicate roaches. So no, I don't take it lightly. So now that being said, it occurred to me that, do people know when they're in toxic work environments, when the spirals are starting to occur? Do you know when you show up in a workspace what it looks like initially? Because I think, in hindsight, when I look back at previous places I've worked, that, because I don't think there's anybody, because when you're working with people, I don't think there's anybody that has never experienced a hostile work environment. And if you have, then you're one of the few, and you're very lucky, because I can say honestly, in some of the courses that I've been taking, and classes and meetings, and oh my gosh, the meetings, there where people are just opening up and being honest about their experiences navigating hostile work environments, I really came to realize that we have a problem here. And that's what has led me to start talking about this on my channel. And it's like finally, and then I went to, I'm doing the John Maxwell books and everything. And John Maxwell talks about the law of process and how leadership isn't built in a day and it's a compound process. And I literally watched this play out because for me, going through those classes, reading these books at the same time, watching, and I've really gotten into watching, and I went and I purchased Robert Greene's book because I saw an interview and it was like he was just talking about how naive he was going into the workforce and how he just did not know that people would behave the way that they do. And I was like, he's talking to me. And I should have, when I had the 48 laws of power well over 15 years ago, I should have read it. But I didn't because I felt like it was dark. I thought this is negative. I don't want to operate like this. And when I watched the interview, he was saying that that's not what the book is for. He said, because anybody that is operating off of the 48 laws of power is going to be alone. They're going to be a lonely person. And so I think that's true. However, it did make me aware that this is something I need to read because I don't think I look for those traits in people. I don't think I even thought about that. And so just going back and now that I've put some things down, I've learned a lot about myself on this journey. And I put some things down. And one of the things I put down, actually, I was forced to, was a photography class. A health condition forced me to put that down. However, it was a lesson to me when I started having mobility issues that you're not going to go anywhere that the Most High doesn't want you to go. You're not going to do anything that He does not want you to do. And so it made me realize that first of all, you're doing too much. And second of all, why are you doing that anyway? And when I had to get honest about why I was taking the class anyway, I realized that it wasn't coming from a righteous place. You don't, first of all, the Most High put me where I am. And when He puts you somewhere, it is not your responsibility to try to prove to other people that you belong there. Hi, Emmanuel. The link's there if you want to chat, if you want to listen, if you got questions. This is kind of my opportunity to do kind of a little Q&A and talk about some of the things that I've been doing and to give people a chance to, ask questions about where I'm going with the content. So yeah, I just think that you don't get to question it. And I realized that He sat me down because see, sometimes Most High will sit you down when you won't sit yourself down. Okay? First of all, you're doing too much. And then the reason why you're doing this right here, you're doing that to try to do what? To prove that you belong, that you're worthy. I said you were worthy because I put you there. The realization that the criticisms that I was receiving about not having this or that some of the very people accusing and criticizing don't even have what they're upset about me not having. And that was one of the most absurd things that I had ever heard of in my whole damn life. And so I really began to question my sanity. Like, what is wrong with you? And so what are you doing today that you may need to reconsider because you're questioning something? And my husband, I love my husband, made me realize something. And he said, we had a conversation about what do you really want to do? Because he's always asking me, like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to do radio. I want to do content. And he was like, okay, well, you already have that. And I mean, like, duh. It's like, but I was dismissive of what I have. It's like you say you want to, like, oh, you want to dictate the size of it. Oh, you want to dictate how. You didn't say, but so guess what? You didn't put an address on it. You didn't say, well, you know what? I want a radio show with 3 million followers, subscribers, or listeners. I didn't say that. So now I'm learning because just like with the job I asked for, let me tell you guys something. Not only did I, to get out of the situation, I had a very specific number. I said, Lord, just give me this number, so I can just get out of here. And this is all I need. Do you know he gave me? I got that exact number plus a couple of extra $100, and then turned right around later on and got blessed with a promotion. And so I said, well, it taught me something. Be specific. And it taught me that. I said it, and guess what? I turned right around and I'm still not being specific. So let me correct those things and get more specific. And for me right now, it's just about trying to find my voice. And I was telling him, like, for me, the challenge was to chronicle that process. And so for me, showing up for you guys, talking about my journey, sharing with you the things that I learned is because I truly do not want to see younger women and men or boys or whoever when they're watching the Working Class Chronicles struggle the way I did and the way I do. You know, being on here is not saying that I have all the answers, that I figured it out, and I have it, because I don't. And I think there's the beauty in that too, right? Because it's like there's always growing that needs to be done. And so for me, learning how to navigate a toxic work environment, I realized I guess it was just something that I needed to share with other people so that they can learn. Because I can honestly say one thing I do know, and I watch employee after employee, no matter where they are, whether at a fast food restaurant or whether they are in a government organization. People don't like to document. And that is why a lot of bad behavior happens. And that is why a lot of toxic work environments thrive, because people have an issue with documenting. And now, in this day and age, I have to tell you, there is no excuse for you not to document. Because if you're a person who feels like, well, I don't write well, I can't spell, you know what? Stop worrying about people judging or criticizing you for using AI. You already know you can't write, and if you're already submitting reports, the people who receive them know you can't write either. But what I will suggest is that you use AI, but don't just use it as a crutch. So, for example, when I use AI, particularly like if I'm writing, I will write my narrative, then I will submit it to AI and ask it to check the grammar and punctuation. And then sometimes we'll even do brainstorming sessions, and I train mine to challenge me on thoughts and things that I put out. You want to learn. So grammar and usage, if you're making mistakes, you want AI to tell you so you can know. Because guess what? There are going to be times when you're using devices and things and you're not able to use AI. You want to know where the commas go, right? It may say your husband was right. I always enjoyed your content and the way you stood on your values and integrity. I'm glad to see you back after you left. Thank you. That means a lot. And I can say that that means a lot to me, because a lot of times it's hard, especially when it came to navigating a hostile work environment, being the one to stand your ground. And that's what we're going to get into. Being that person, you're going to stand alone. And a lot of times this is why your exit strategy is important. And it is something, unfortunately, even if you love the job, that you're going to have in your back pocket and you're going to have to be working on. Because ultimately when you're fighting alone, you're fighting because, so the title of this is Hostile Workplaces, Neighborhoods of Fear. Hostile work environments operate just like bad neighborhoods. And so when your job becomes a dangerous neighborhood, what always happens in bad neighborhoods, people always ask, well, what is the role? They never ask, what is our role in fixing the neighborhood so good people don't leave? They never ask that. It's, well, why are they living like that? Why are they talking about that? We don't talk about all the issues that go into, like, just like leadership isn't built in a day, toxic work environments and bad neighborhoods aren't built in a day. Hey, those houses, they were brand new at one point. That was a functioning neighborhood at one point. A lot of times, workspaces and places, they were functioning entities at some point. They grew and developed into unsafe places and places where physical and psychological hazards were proliferated, tolerated, and facilitated. And they're always facilitated by a Bostinator. And if you just got here and you don't know what a Bostinator is, that is what we call the bad boss on our new Office Terminator series. The bad boss is a Bostinator because they literally are like a Terminator. They don't stop. They can't be bargained with. They can't be reasoned with. You can't have a conversation where you think you're going to go and you all solve the issue and you're going to be productive later on. No, they will laugh in your face, smile in your face, buy you lunch, and still try to get you fired all in the same day. And don't you ever forget it. When you're in a toxic workplace, you're often going to be just like that lone resident in that neighborhood, standing, calling the police on the thugs and the gangsters, going to the community meetings, speaking out. You're that person going to HR, speaking out. You're the person trying to rally your other employees that we all need to stick together because they're afraid of the Bostinator. If we stand together, we can defeat the Bostinator. But they're like, no, the Bostinator has too many people. They have too many other. He has too many androids, too many little flying monkeys. Because a lot of times the Bostinator is an arc, right? And they have flying monkeys and a whole bunch of codependents. They got scapegoats, all of that, and they're all working to please the Bostinator because they don't want to be the next one on the chopping block. So you have to deal with all of that, plus the fraidy cats if you are the person who is the whistleblower or the one willing to make a stand. And so you can see the signs, the toxic behavior, people standing by watching. They like to stand on the sidelines and watch the shit go down. They don't want to get involved. But just like in a bad neighborhood, the people who watching the break-ins, watching the drug deals, the domestic violence, the intimidation, they don't want to get involved. They're closing their blinds. They're peeking through the blinds. Ooh, look at that over there. They don't want to say anything. They don't want to get involved until they start coming to their house, until their house is broken into when they're at work. Now all of a sudden they want to be part of the neighborhood watch. They want everybody to get together. We need to go to City Hall. We need to call the police. We need to. But where were you when the first person tried to blow the trumpet? Well, guess what? At this point, they've been fighting alone. They're tired. And when you're in a hostile work environment and you're standing alone, this is why I say I even have to get honest with myself. I have to have it work on my exit strategy because you can't fight off all these people by yourself. One thing about hostile work environments, the cliques operate like gangs. And the parallel is just clear for me. So like the toxic work environment and the bad neighborhood, in broad daylight you'll see crime. In broad daylight in your office you'll see harassment. You'll see discrimination. You'll see the clique teaming up, powering up like Voltron. Everything happens out in the open, and all they do is they get together in their little cliques. They laugh. They talk about it. They plot and work together. With this scene I have right here, there is no difference between a office clique and a street gang. They operate exactly the same. The retaliation, the power trip, the whole intimidation, the threat. So with gangs, you get jumped in or jumped out. In the office, you get invited to a lunch and invited to participate in helping target whoever the target is. And if you don't participate, you're next. I've watched so many people leave and then end up being the only one left standing. Your turn. You're going to get your turn. And the people who just jump ship, they get the hell out of there because they don't want to fight. And when you're the person who's willing to fight, you're going to get abandoned. You're going to be alone. And that's just something you just have to face. And it doesn't change. And I hate to say that. It sounds really negative, but we just have to be honest. The only way you can change a toxic work environment is if you get buy-in either from all the employees or the people at the top running the organization. And a lot of times they don't care as long as the work is getting done. The only time they get upset is when the workflow stops because the spice must flow, right? And so what happens is the people who have been there longest, well, when all the new blood is gone, the scapegoats, it's their turn again. Now they start getting harassed and they get worn down. So the Bostinator immediately started tiring because, okay, we got to get some new people in here. And the cycle starts all over again. It is a vicious cycle. And the people you come in and they're going to go through the same thing. When you refuse to be blood in or blood out of the game, when you won't join the clique, When you won't become a flying monkey for the Bostinator, everything gets weaponized. Your performance review. There'll be nitpicking, unfair ratings, career sabotage. Not only that, they will use the click to help target you. Shifting goalposts. These are the metrics. Oh, if you're crushing the metrics change. You know what? Your report is due every Thursday. The reports are due on Friday. For you, I want yours Thursday. There's always going to be something. If you have a health issue, that's going to be weaponized against you. Personal circumstances, keep that shit out of the office. Don't tell these people when you start a new job, you need to try the spirit. That's one thing I did not realize I didn't do enough. I watch people, but knowing what I know now, I will bet the whole organization. You got to watch everybody. Shalom, Empress. You need to look at everybody and watch how they move. See how this organization moves that you joined. Because now you're in a relationship for real. You signed the papers. Just like you signed a marriage contract. You have just formed a new covenant. Now who did you just bond yourself to? What family did you just join? The people in there. Because you're going to be stuck with them for the majority of your day. Look at them. And if I knew what I know now, I would have examined my coworkers more closely. Anywhere I go, I will examine people more closely and watch how they operate. I'm kind of a free spirit, and I always kind of had the attitude, I don't care what other people are doing. I'm doing me. And I think that's what Robert Greene was talking about. That's the naivety of entering some workspaces. You think that you can just be you and just do what you're supposed to do, and every little thing is going to be all right. But this is not a Bob Marley song, and every little thing will not be all right. You need to watch your six for real. The toxicity spreads, the workplace declines, just like the neighborhoods decline. You know, the people who are the high performers, the people who have ethics and standards, they're going to leave. And it always leaves you with either a bunch of new hires or a bunch of old people. And the old people, keep in mind, the people who are old, they're the ones that are the kids that's used to being stuffed in the locker by the job. They've gotten used to the abuse. They know they just have to take all those punches in the head until some fresh meat comes in. And then they'll be okay for a little while. But that's the thing about a toxic work environment. There always has to be a punching bag. There always has to be a scapegoat. There always has to be someone who will shut up and take it. And normally that's the people who I like to call the neutral zone. They like to try to stay neutral, but there is no neutrality in a hostile work environment. Those cliques, and that's why I say in a hostile work environment, the cliques operate just like gangs. If you are not in the clique, you are the enemy, and they will target you, and they will not stop. They are just like the Bostinator. They will not stop until you are eliminated. And so the good people leave the organization. The organization weakens. The turnover is high. You know, all these people, it's like, why is the turnover so high? They don't look into it. The people at the top don't care. As long as you just get some more people in there and fix it, get it fixed. The spice must flow. We don't give a damn how you get it done. They don't take the time to talk to the people who left to see why did you leave? Or the people who are there, who are people making the complaints are often looked at as the problem. Instead of looking at the fucking canary in the coal mine for what it is and acting, will you treat them like a pariah? Oh, you making too much noise. You got to go. But do you know that if you would do something about the air is bad down here, people are dying or they're moving out. If you would take heed to the canary, you can fix it and your turnover won't be so high. You won't have to keep training new people every other month or every 3 or 4 months. Because people stay if they're happy. If it's a healthy environment, they'll stay. Most of the time, the people who are there long term, they're either the ones who are engaged in a toxic work environment, they're the people who are close to retirement or who have health issues and they don't want to go. Or the job has the flexibility. Maybe they can work remotely. They're able to do what they want to do. I might have to put up with a little bullshit, but guess what? I get to do this other bullshit that I do. So in the end, I'll take getting stuffed in the locker every week from this bitch because hey, I get what I want on the other end. So that's what bad neighborhoods are like too. Sometimes the residents, well, they're not bothering me. They just bothering them up the street. It's always okay as long as it's happening to someone else. Exactly, Emmanuel Wood for the wood chipper. Let's get some new people in here. Maybe some new people will move in and they'll fight with them and leave me alone. Either that or the house will get boarded up. Then the next one gets boarded up. That next cubicle gets emptied. And then the next. And now your workload has increased because you're short of staff. And it goes on and on and on. And what is the response when the good people leave? Everybody just says, I don't blame them, I'd leave too. Well, and then the other people who, because those people, they'll tell you in a minute when you start talking about the toxic work environment, why don't you just leave? You should have left sooner. That's why your neighborhoods look the way they do. That's why your latte is cold, because there's nobody else working in there. You got one barista. You got one person working the register and trying to cook the fries at the same time because they did what you said do. They just left. They just left the neighborhood. They just left. And so targets, they stay. People who speak up, they stay longer. They stay for a while because initially you try to fight, right? You try to speak up. You want to do something about it. You say, "Hey, this isn't right. I'm not going to take this." But now you're starting to get written up. Now you're starting to be double teamed. Now you can't even move without having to document every single thing and record every single thing. And I can tell you from personal experience, a year of it's not sustainable. You're going to get tired. And that's also part of the strategy, right? When you are a person who won't join the gang and you won't just shut up and take the abuse, they got to get rid of you. And most of the time, when they can't do it because you're a rule follower and you do your job, they will start falsifying documents. They have no problem with clicking up and lying on you. They're a gang and they move like a gang. And they also will wear you down. They will try to remove you through attrition. And that is to just make you so tired where you just anytime you think you have a little level of peace, assume the Bostonator is in there recharging because there is no reprieve for you. They're going to be right back and right back at it. So when they take a break, you better take a break because as soon as they recharge, they're coming back and they're going to be on your ass. Okay, you don't get a break. There is no break. The Bostonator will not stop until you are gone, until you are terminated. Okay, that is the whole end goal, is to get rid of you. That person who's calling the police, the person who's filing those complaints. We're going to talk about the whistleblower profile next week and who they are, what ends up happening to them, because it's a vicious cycle and it happens all the time. I watched it in the previous place. I'm trying to get them to organize. We need to do this. We organized on the front end and got one Bostonator removed. They kept a minion. The minion was promoted, continue with the behavior. Nobody wanted to do it again. But guess what? I watched every last one of them systematically get removed until the point where that organization only has 2 or 3 long-term people who have been there for years because everybody else jumped ship. They got the hell out of there. And that's what happens to you in a toxic work environment. You cannot sustain, especially if you're coming from a righteous spirit, you can't sustain the fight. You can only do it for so long. And that brings us back round robin to the original question that nobody ever asked. What is our role in fixing the neighborhood so the good people don't leave? And that is my question to you today. That is the challenge to you. Are you just walking away? Are you just sitting there silent, watching the whistleblower or the fighter or the person on the block that's willing to stand up and fight? Are you just sitting there watching? Or are you going to do something? Because the only way any of this changes is if we do something about it. If we get the people in charge to give a damn, because they have to think too at some point, if we want this organization to be healthy and whole, and we want to recruit, if we genuinely want new people consistently to stay and contribute and invest in this organization or this community or this business, we have to treat people right. And so instead of killing the canary before it can let us know if the air is good or bad, when you have canaries in your coal mine, you need to get those people together and you need to find out what is going on and why the people can't breathe. Thanks for watching. Shalom, everybody.